This is something that in the last few years, we've really seen retailers get really interested in because their use case, like Nike, is 1,000 plus locations throughout North America. A small wireless team was responsible for all of them. A lot of those stores have neighboring organizations, of course, that are running their own Wi-Fi networks. They're in busy urban areas, and there's non-Wi-Fi interference that they have to troubleshoot and identify. So the Sapphire Eye sensor becomes a force multiplier for that wireless team. You can think of it as having your most important troubleshooting tools available wherever it is remotely, short of being able to do a site survey. A on-site RF validation. Right. So one of the things that Sapphire Eye can do on top of its own analysis is over-the-air packet capturing, and it's going to include the radio tap headers along with that. So if you just want to pull in a PCAP from wherever that eye is, you can do that and do your own analysis on it. And then spectrum analysis, and it does dual band spectrum analysis, and you get 2 weeks of data to look at, which really helps with those sources of interference that are transient. They come and go. You're troubleshooting something from days ago, and you need historical data to be able to see it.
Do you have an example of a weird interference you found out using that 2 weeks?
We did a webinar actually on that on our YouTube channel on just kind of the strange things we've seen in the spectrum analyzer.
Okay, I'll take a look at it. I'm interested now.
Right. So a new area for Sapphire Eye is Wi-Fi 6 specific analysis. We're just getting started with this now, and there's a lot of new features in Wi-Fi 6 that are brand new to Wi-Fi. OFDMA being one of those, and so we've started with some early data analysis of that, and this is an example of that where we're looking at the airtime utilization that uplink OFDMA is consuming in this network, which has Wi-Fi 6 clients and Wi-Fi 6 APs, and OFDMA is actually occurring there. So, we're just getting started with that, but interesting that the sensor in its current form with 802.11ac radios can still give some visibility into these new Wi-Fi 6 features. So
how do you do that?
We rely on doing analysis on the management and control traffic that happens around OFDMA. So the trigger frames, the multi-station block acts, the HE preamble, we can hear all that because it's legacy encoded. And then, we use that to understand what actually happened in between those frames.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do you have mobile eye data coming from clients that now have Wi-Fi 6 chipsets?
We do. Yeah. So our first look at Wi-Fi 6 is with Sapphire Eye, where we have a lot of control over the way the analysis happens and the data we collect. And, eventually we'll move into looking at mobile eye stuff too.
Does the client tell you if it's doing OFDMA or OFDM?
I don't think so. Okay. I haven't seen a.
So if the data rate is the same, because the RU size is like 20 megahertz, you won't know if it's OFDMA or.
It depends, because there are some differences in data rates there. What we'd need to see is a client in OFDMA for a pretty long period for it to change the data rate it's telling us it's using to an OFDMA rate, right? So the client OSs don't update the data rate they use like as frequently as the data rate changes, because that can be, on a microsecond level. But that's something we're paying attention to, because OFDMA, even in networks where it happens, it's still kind of rare. We're not seeing a lot of client-side data yet for that.
Your sensor, where do you recommend installing them? Is it on the ceiling or on where the actual clients are?
Yeah,
or,
they are designed to be ceiling mounted. So
yeah, and they have a coverage pattern that's spreads out in the horizontal plane that it's installed at. So that allows one Sapphire Eye to cover more APs and reduce the spend you need to get full coverage.
On the mobile app piece that you're installing on agents, is there an SDK version of that? And my thought there would be like, if I wanted to try to capture, like if my business was like the general public for whatever reason, right? Like if I wanted to capture more of that, installing an SDK as part of like whatever app I'd have, right? Like I live in Vegas, so let's say a casino loyalty app, right?
Mm-hmm.
To then get visibility across all my users that are even guests and get some feedback from there.
Yeah, we're not doing that today. Today, we're just using our own apps and our own agents.
So something like that, then you'd be putting it out on like, I'll just keep running with that, like the casino use case. Like it'd be on like the phones that like slot techs and people like that use, and that are assets owned by the organization typically.
That's right. And it can be deployed with an MDM or Microsoft Intune, SCCM, bulk deployment.
For an SDK?
not at this stage, but there has been some discussion about loyalty apps and hotels, airlines with the in-flight Wi-Fi, passenger experience and guest experience is a big area. But our focus at this stage is on enterprise use cases.
Kind of related to the same thing. It would be nice to have some vendors integrating some of that client data into their dashboard, so you can have the point of view of the AP and the point of view of the clients.
Mm-hmm.
So are you guys thinking of doing like an API for Mobile Eye, so they can start doing those type of integration?
I think you're about 3 slides ahead of me. So why don't we jump in? Good segue.
Quick question, if I can.
Sure.
When you talked about the analyzing the OFDM, and you were talking about trigger frames and looking at the assignments, another way would be if your spectrum analyzer could actually detect the null pieces, so you could see how the resource units. Is your spectrum analyzer capable of that?
I don't think we've ever tested that, so not sure.
Interesting.
What's the resolution for the spectrum?
It depends on it's variable. You can adjust it, but the more data points you take, the more you're storing as well. So
Yeah, spectral scan's fairly intensive on the storage side of things, and the higher resolution scans don't generally offer a lot more value, but we can configure it for higher resolution scans. I don't think we've ever had a case where we needed to push it.
Yeah, because I was thinking, the trigger frames don't give you an efficiency over time, whereas a spectrum analyzer would give you efficiency over time. Trigger frames just give you an instance when the resources are being assigned, right?
Yeah.
Is there on the spectrum captures? Is there a way to download them and load them into a tool or anything?
You can download
Like a recording?
a PNG, I think, but not the raw data.